No, we don't ever discuss the very important part of that. This project, they're entirely financed by us. There are no grant from industry or government or any agency or anything. The money don't come from books, selling books or films or postcards or photographic. Only selling the original works of art. Meaning that we need to sell to pay millions of dollars of this project. Meaning that everything of the project is involving that. Building the project, getting the permission, engineers, lawyers, governmental agency, collectors, museum, gallery, selling, everything is that. And this is why all the information in our world is about art. And who buy our art, who is our collectors, who is our art, is about 10,000 of them around the world. No any from Bulgaria.
Yes.
And of course, this is why there's no reason to think about Bulgaria.
Yes.
Okay, understand? Now, for example, one of the greatest collectors on us, most of the big collectors in the United States, but one of the very close, is in Japan. I'm not Japanese. I have nothing to do with Japan, but in Japan, we have so many museums, so many collectors. And Australia also. Now, meaning that we think about Japan, and their book publication and exhibition and collection in Japan, I don't speak, they all have get translated. Australia, we think about it, or the Belgium, or Dutch, or the Germans, or the Swiss, this is the people who buy our Swedes, or people who buy, very few South Americans, I don't think about South America, very few India, I don't think about them. But we have a collector in Abu Dhabi. Okay. Yeah. Understand, this is the all link, one big pole of relation. And I don't think about that. No, I can tell you, this is how it's happened. The only time we were outside, back again, so-called country who was behind Iron Curtain an old time, Eastern European country, was not Bulgaria. That was in Warsaw, 1998, because the National Museum of Warsaw desperately like to have an exhibition. And of course, okay, let me explain it. The original works of art, when they travel an exhibition, they are very expensive. Expensive meaning that the insurance is very expensive. Yeah, but also I do editions, like your friend, Bulgarian friend. Yeah. Okay, we do not sell the edition. The people who make editions, who's number 1 to 100, you know how they are multiples, also objects like the telephone, payphone. The publishers come to us and he buy entire edition. He pay us right away. We don't sell the edition. And of course, but we have a exhibition of all our editions. It's about 120 pieces. And of course, National Museum, the insurance is less expensive because they are multiples, they are much less expensive value. And the National Museum, Warsaw, desperately have the exhibition, but of course they have no money. Finally, they have money for the insurance to pay the exhibition of multiples editions. And that exhibition was in Warsaw, I think, in November, sometime in 1998. It's the only place I'm back in Eastern Europe since 1956.
Okay, I will tell you something. Because my grandmother used to live next to your house in Gabrovo, and I know many things. I read many things about you. And 1 month ago, I wrote a very big article in the biggest Bulgarian newspaper, because I believe that our state should buy your works, and for our future Museum of Modern Art, they have to make a special dedicated room or section.
No, really.
And
don't think about that.
And
no,
it's
art, not the state. The state art is. I know some country buy, the state buy, but yes, art is bought by humans. And if the humans like art, if they're old, they can donate that to the museum, etc. But this is how art is bought in the United States. This is why you have a great art, because the oldest museums, they are not state museums, except the Smithsonian,
yes,
who is but still Smithsonian are receiving gifts, you know, they have, actually, the Smithsonian is a big institution, the National Gallery of Washington, who owns 60 works of us in Washington, they not bought these pieces. There was the great collector, Herbie Dorothy Vogel, and some other collectors give works to the National Gallery, who is the institution owned by the federal government, but they receive gifts, you know. Of course, these gifts, they tax, you know, all this arrangement with the government of the United States. But you should understand, the buying the government to buy art, this is not important. It's important to have people love to collect art, that's all.
Please explain me about your book, because I will buy it. It's amazing. It's only 1,000 copies, right?
Yeah, it's very expensive, but don't buy the book.
But only the first 6 ones.
No.
It's $1,000.
Only sign it. The first 6 ones, they're $50,000. Yeah, this is the 1,000 or 1,500 at the end of August. No.
So you
I designed the book. Okay,
everything.
That is we have a long relation with the German publisher, German and international publisher, Taschen, Benedict Taschen, for many years, and Benedict. German-born, but he lived also in the United States. Benedict did many books on us, many books, small, big books. Each of our big projects have a books, like the Gates book and also the Reichstag and Umbrellas. Benedict did this book in 1974, 73, when he was very excited for our anniversary, for our 75, who was last June, a few months ago, last month, or a month and a half ago, that we should have a general book of all our work. And he asked, because I designed all my books for Benedict Taschen, he asked me if I'd like to do that and design the book. Yes, I say. Of course, Paul Goldberg, who is a very good architectural writer for the New York magazine, wrote the text for the book, general text, and interview. Actually, the last interview Jean-Claude and myself give to anybody was in last September, before Jean-Claude passed away. And Wolfgang was our photographer. We have most of the photographers. There are many other photographers. I designed the book, and curiously enough, there are 2029 reproduction, and Jean-Claude and Jonathan Henry, Jean-Claude's assistant, or nephew also, work on the caption, the text in each photograph, and all that I was finished before Jean-Claude passed away. It was miraculously finished, and when she passed away, the book was in production already, and we were very happy that we can have that book for our birthday. Just was last month.
Just one day before I came to New York, I was listening to a football game to my radio, and a guy called on the radio, and he said that I'm a blind man, blind. Yes, he cannot see, and he said to our presenter, "But you are speaking so good that I can see the game." Yeah. And I wondered, did you meet blind people who like your work?
Yeah, the blind people come, but they have an enormous sense of the surface. And they would we did project called, and 1978 called Rap Walkways, and the Loose Park in Kansas City, Missouri. We covered the walkway with the golden fabric, with a lot of folds, like a normal walkway, like is a park in the middle of the Kansas City, in the middle of the city. Park very used by people crossing for one block and going to another block, crossing, not big park like Central Park, very common park of using every day. And there was about 4.5 kilometer walkway. There was wider, narrower, a design section in the park with a garden, a rose garden, and other thing. And we covered that with this fabric, but it was not like a carpet, it was with folds, and you need to look when you walk, if you know we fold. And there was about 30 blind people. They removed their shoes and they walk barefoot, and they feel that very well because they have tremendous tactile feelings. Yeah, with their sense of the surface, they know that how the fold was everything. Yeah.
Do you sometimes buy back your drawings?
Yeah, no, not only drawings, also early sculptures like the wrap packages. Because we never have, usually in the world of art, in capitalism, the artists have gallery, and the gallery have exclusivity, and gallery manage their art. They receive like stipendium each month, and of course the gallery owns much of work because they advance money to the artists, things like that. We never have this arrangement. We work with many galleries, but very simple buying relation. And we found ourselves, Jean-Claude and myself, with a huge amount of original works that we own since 1958, 59, and a huge amount that here is nothing. We have storages around the world. Our big storage is in Basel, Switzerland, and now we have our own curator who dealing with all this huge amount of storages, exhibition, many things, and each time we sell, of course, a lot of works to pay the bills, but also each time if it's a bargain, if some work is an auction, we do not have this type of work, or we know that some collector looking for this type of work, we buy back and we resell. This is very common. We do that all the time.
How is your son? What is he doing?
My son is a writer, poet, and activist, environmental activist here for many years, for many, many years. He spent a lot of time since age of 14.
14?
I don't know if you're familiar. He was 14 years old, and instead to go to school in Manhattan, he enrolled in a school organized by the United Nations. He was very interested in the origin of humans. You know that the famous anthropologist, American anthropologist Robert Leakey, who discovered the first skeleton of, 3 million old humans in Kenya. And our son spent 6 months in Kenya with that anthropologist, and their foundation with other scientists working on some monkey, writing some story about the origin of humans related to the monkey tribes. And of course, since that, he spent months and months in Africa, around the world, and involving with the humans, with the endangered species and tigers and all these things.
So he is not your assistant?
No. He published books and films and have his own life,
Okay.
With his wife, who is an architect, but she worked with him.
And he came back to Bulgaria with Jean-Claude, I believe, in 1982 or something?
Yes, probably. Not 82. I don't know when.
I think Jean-Claude came in
82 when my mother died. 82. She came to see my father in 82. Yeah. But I think he came a little later, probably 1985 something. But passing through Bulgaria with some girlfriend, I think, going to some place.
I always
not little boy. He's 50 years old.
I always wanted to ask you before, because you told that you were washing dishes back in the like here.
I'm washing dishes. You know why I'm washing dishes?
Why?
You know why?
Because of money.
No, to have a food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, because the money was nothing. The washing dishes in the restaurant is nothing. Money is nothing. But the food is free. This is the great things. Especially I can work in art during the day, and big washing dishes is basically in the evening, and the evening you can have a good dinner.
Okay, but did you continue to wash dishes here with Jean-Claude? Who washed the dishes?
No. I think me and Jean-Claude is not important. We don't have a dishwasher. I'm still washing dishes myself or Jean-Claude. Washing dishes and washing car in the garages was in Vienna, Austria, in 1957.
1957.
Yeah.
Wow. What did Jean-Claude told you about Bulgaria when she came back?
Well, I remember she got to Bulgaria in 1982, and for her she was very happy. And Anani, Vladimir father, take her to Gabrovo to see when I was born, and she was very happy to see all these little villages I was going to. Kachuri, little village, during the Second World War. We're going when there was the evacuation, bombardment, and I remember she was very happy to see the family, very, very much.
Great.
But she know my mother and my father already from France. They come. Okay, my mother and my father come. After I left Bulgaria, first time I see them in 1977. When my 1977.
So 20 years after.
Yeah, because she have a cataract, an eye, she have a knee operation, and they come and they live in south of France, and near Nice. We have a friend, big art collector, eye surgeon, who take care about my mother, and also she have a knee operation, and they come twice in south of France, and in 78. 77, and again, I think in 79, check it. And after that, they came also to New York in 81 or 80 during the working on the gates permits, I remember. They were for 2 months here in the spring, early summer of 81, I think.
I read that Jean-Claude helped very much your mother with the operation and everything.
Yeah.
Because probably you've heard things in Bulgaria, they said that he is not returning to Bulgaria because of Jean-Claude.
No, never heard of that. No,
yes, they are saying things like that.
No, I'm not returning to Bulgaria because I can tell you, I cannot spend one moment, 1 hour is not related to our art. Meaning what? I only can go where is important for our art. Meaning important, I need to have a collector buying art. I need to go to lecture because they're buying art. We need to go to see engineers because we need to have permission. This is not that we don't have one moment to lose in that. I have nothing. All our program is geared to that. And we go to any place where the people interested in that. I can give you an example. For example, there's no secret. I come spending, when I travel outside of New York, because the moment I am out of New York, I'm losing about between $15,000 to $20,000 a day. Because that is, if I don't work in the studio, how much I can make with my own hand. Understand? And meaning that I cannot have a luxuriously to go around because I'm bored to death first. And also, if I go, like we went for 3-4 days in Colorado, is basically to get the permission. From Colorado, we go to Washington, because much of the permission is also Washington, federal government will be there. If, for example, now I will go to Berlin only because to lecture there and also to make a big sale to work of art in Berlin. Back from Berlin, that's in September. But between now and middle of September, I do not move from New York City because I need to work so much. Because in late September, the exhibition about Over the River Museum in Denver, they are not working enough to the exhibition in Denver. I need to make the drawings. They are finishing now, but they need to be finished, photographed. Vladimir will go to help the hanging of the exhibition in Denver end of September. I will not go for the opening, but we go a little later for the opening to lecture and to talk to people who are supporting the project a little later. Meanwhile, we sold huge amount of Over the River to big gallery in Belgium, actually a Flemish part, Knok Zoet, who already pay millions of dollars, and he have the work, but he put the exhibition in Paris in the end of November, and his gallery in Paris. I need to go to Paris to lecture in Paris. We got before that to lecture in Milano because probably the big exhibition in Milano. You know, all our things is geared to have money to pay for the project, to get the permission, to that. This is no 1 second outside.
Please tell me.
We have another book, and I need to design another book to be published. Another
Great.
book about Over the River to be ready for the middle of November. This is another thing need to be designed by me. All these things.
Finally, please tell me about your team here after the passing of Jean-Claude. Who is helping you?
They're the same. They're not in exchange. Jean-Claude I do not have assistant. I'm working alone in my studio. I even frame my works myself. Jean-Claude have 3 assistants. Vladimir Явашев, one is my nephew, another son, my older brother. Another is Jonathan Henry, Jean-Claude's sister, Joyce Henry. And Adam Blackburn is from Wisconsin. Somebody else. It's a nephew. And this is all here. But at the same time, we have each of our projects have a project director and chief engineer, director of construction. And they're dear friends of us, like a family of us. They live in Seattle, and he was Junita Davenport was project director also for the gates. And she's also project director for the Over the River. They live in Seattle, and of course we meet in Denver or Washington. And Vince Davenport, her husband, is the chief engineer director of construction. We were together just 4 days now in Colorado. And now, that is the case. We have but each project have it's done by corporation. It's done by normal corporation, no non-profit corporation. Okay, I should say that for Bulgarians. Okay, all our projects, they're built by corporation. Non-profit is real corporations who was created, 1970, that is many years ago, 40 years ago. And that corporation is the holding company is the called CVG Corporation. It's like my initial, Kристо Явашев. And that corporation is New York and Delaware Corporation. It's another state of the United States, convenient for the taxes near Washington. And that corporation, when get permission, created, just before get the permission, created a subsidiary. There was the Reichstag Corporation, German corporation, but that corporation exists only for the realization of Reichstag, and after that is removed, and they pay the bills, everything. But all the money comes from the CVG Corporation, who is selling goods, my original works of art, and with that money she can pay the laborers, engineers, factories, etc. But the CVG Corporation send the money to the the subsidiary, and they pay that. Now, for example, now there is subsidiary over the River Corporation, Colorado, of CVG Corporation. There was the Polner Corporation, Umbrella Corporation, Rauner, all these different. Now, that corporation is, I'm the shareholder, Jean-Claude is the shareholder together. That corporation have also chief lawyer, chief legal counsel, who is very old friend, big collector from us in Chicago, Scott Hollis. Now, this is the body of corporation. And of course, the corporation, that is the upper lawyer. You need to have a lawyer on this project. He's a higher lawyer. And after that, each time, each project hire lawyers for the side. We have a big team of lawyers in Colorado and Washington, but they are related entirely to Over the River project. They're not the same lawyers for the Reichstag, etc. They're different. And their team, like for example, Vince Davenport, Julian Davenport, they created a team of engineers, because we need to have engineers certified by the state of Colorado to sign our paper. Like we need to have a German engineer to certify it, to sign paper. All this, the group of engineering companies, specialists, all kind of varieties, working for Over the River Corporation, but they're only for Over the River project. They're not that nucleus team. So all that is done. And of course, that done, this is how all this project, and once the project is realized and removed, that corporation, like Reichstag Corporation, is dissolved, or the gas corporation is dissolved, and there's another corporation stuff.
So
you should know that actually, you should go to the website, because the business community in Europe should know that in Harvard school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, it's very well known Harvard Business School. It's school of business. That after university, to become a good businessman, you go to that school. And that school is teaching by cases. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Case. They're not abstracting. They have a case of Steve Jobs of Apple. They have a case of Bill Gates. And 5 years ago, they work very hard. It's the case of Kристо Jean-Claude and Harvard's Business School. You can go to website and to see for the Bulgarian business people to go to that case of Harvard Business School for Kристо Jean-Claude to explain, because that case explains exactly mechanics of banking. Because we go to many banks, with many all kind of banks around the world, like. Because we need to have a cash flow, variety of things. They are very well explaining that it's like a normal corporation who make money, who is involved with business, entrepreneurship. Yeah, and that is the very important case. It was done 3 years ago. There's a work on 2.5, 3 years to do that thing.
But the thing is that currently in Gabrovo, they are making a corporation of business people trying to have funds to build a museum of modern art in Gabrovo dedicated to you.
Don't do anything. The sad story is not only in Bulgaria. Yes, it's all around the world. All around the world, they love to spend money in buildings, but they have no art. And that is very sad story. There are plenty of museums around the world. In Japan, there was some museum, some city built museum because like our building, we didn't have no workers. By contrary, you should go the other way around.
If I have,
you should have works of art before we build museums. Don't do anything like that. But that is it's not only Bulgarian stupidity. This is stupidity all around the world.
If I have,
and this is very important to understand. That is the museum they built to house art, and art is the most valuable things. And of course, sometime, if you have a great architect there, sometimes the case like the Guggenheim here. and Guggenheim and Bilbao, Hungary, Guggenheim of Frankfurt right here. The museum can become a focal point to attraction, but there are very, very few cases like that, very little cases that 2-3 museums, they attract people to see the building. But forget that, this is the 100th museum they built, and they know. And they, for example, you don't know who built the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. And we go see Van Gogh, I don't remember who built the Van Gogh Museum.
Are there any of your early works in Gabrovo there?
No, you know that the Явашев, they have many Явашев, but not Kристо. No, I don't know. This is the 1958.
This one.
This is also. This is the 61, 58. This is 90. The early pieces, that very early, 58. Yeah.
Do you want someone to succeed your work in 50 years or in 100 years?
What succeeded?
I mean to continue your work.
No, cannot continue. No artists continue their work. How? But no. What do you mean? I don't understand. What's mean continue?
I mean because if someone has a project, he would like a pupil or a student to continue.
No, you cannot. How? Picasso? Yeah, somebody continue his work? No. But the same thing.
Warhol has.
No, but Warhol not at all. Nobody do fake Warhol. They do some fake Warhol, but it's not continued. Warhol did so many works at all. There are not more works. No, nobody. Artists cannot have a continue their work. Even the architect, because, architect work and company with many designers, when the principal died, I don't think, like for example, very well-known American architect, Philip Johnson, who designed many things, he died, but I don't think his company exists anymore. The same thing is with Le Corbusier. I think Corbusier have a team, but they fell apart when he passed away. Even that he have assistants in the team of architects. Very few cases. The company is anonymous, like one big company. Of course, one became like a corporate entity, like a Skidmore architect who built the big tower of Dubai or the Sear buildings in Chicago. They are not particular architect. The team of things. But I don't think a great architect, when he passed away, they can continue. For example, one great American architect, Paul Rudolph, who designed very important buildings in the late 50s, early 60s, who passed away, they don't continue. So I try to think of other architects who there's no way to, because the principle is gone,
In this building, in which time are the most greatest parties, like 60s, 70s, here, like inviting people and so on?
Who we invited?
Yes.
There are many invited, but I can tell you, we were very close friend to Marcel Duchamp. Marcel Duchamp came many times come there.
Right.
Yeah. He's one great artist.
Okay. So what will you do today till the end of the day? What is your program for today?
Rush to work upstairs.
Okay.
Upstairs because I need to finish the works for that exhibition. Who need to be photographed, need to be shipped, and photograph especially, and photograph take time. But we'll finish the work of the exhibition, and I will be here only up to 14th of September, only barely 3 weeks, because I need to go to Berlin for 3-4 days. And of course also I'm lecturing in October somewhere, because we lecture very much of the place of university and places when the trustee or the collectors, people buy our works, and of course we lecture because there are a group of people who was interested. And a huge amount of relation all the time is going, all the time, and we need to, this part how we live.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.